All right, Korin, how's it going?
Everything's good, man. Yourself?
Good, good. So for anybody that doesn't know you, you want to just like briefly introduce yourself and what your content's about?
Yeah. My name's Korin Sutton. I've been in the military for about 8 years. Served the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, fully active service. Also deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom 3 and 4. Did another 4 years in the United States Navy Reserves. I'm also a vegan, so I've been vegan for over 12 years, and also a pro bodybuilder. And I own a company called Bodybuilder Fitness, which is an online fitness coaching business. So that's pretty much about me. And then when it comes to the content that I put out, mostly about nutrition, health, fitness, veganism. When it comes to ethics and health, plant based, plant based stuff, things like that.
And you said you're vegan for 12 years?
Yeah, about to be 13 pretty soon.
Oh, amazing. And what made you originally go vegan?
Um, Pretty much what made me go vegan was somewhere around like 2011, 2012 time frame. I was in school and we were learning about persuasive speaking when it comes to public speaking, and the example of the professor who invited a special guest. His name was Gary Roski, or is Gary Roski, and he's a vegan activist. So he pretty much did his whole entire speech about veganism, and that pretty much enlightened me because some of the points that he actually hit on definitely resonated to a lot of the stuff that I personally experienced. So he definitely hit points like ethics, health, fitness, things like that when it came down to animals and just eating mostly a whole foods plant-based diet. But one of the things that really resonated with me was when he showed me like some of the slaughterhouse videos. Um, Obviously, I knew what goes. Like I knew like animals die for consumption, for animal, like for food consumption. I always knew that, but I didn't know like the whole entire process. And when that was revealed to me, it definitely opened up my eyes and opened up my horizons when it came down to the treatment of those animals. And when I saw the videos, some of the things that I recognized in my life and through my experience is mostly because I've seen how animals, well, not animals, I've seen how human beings treat themselves at the worst way possible. Definitely since I was in war, and when that ended up happening, um, when I saw from sorry, let me cancel this. So when I from the experience from war, watching the videos, it really resonated because I saw how animals really wanted to live their life. You know, like once they were about to die, it was the same look that I've seen when it came to like comrades and also the enemy. You could say that it was the same thing. Like everybody wants to live and focus on life, and that's what I saw with those animals too. You just have to be kind of aware to those things, and that's what really touched me. And I was just like, look, I was a little hesitant at first, like even with like a lot of other people who doesn't really understand the lifestyle, and but like when it came down to me personally, when I saw that, it really struck home, and I was like, well, if there's a way that I can do this healthy and not have animals involved in that particular way, because I just saw like these animals just being treated like products, like it's just a machine, that just wants to feed the world, and it's like we're blinded of what really goes behind the scene. Like I feel that some people might say that yeah, as Americans we're desensitized, but it's beyond desensitized. It's that we're blinded by a lot of stuff. Like even today, I think it's worse because there's a lot of greenwashing or ethical washing that's happening, and they want to keep avoiding what really happens, like by just changing labels and treatment, like yeah, grass fed and grass fed finished. But regardless of those treatments, just showing one farm of doing something doesn't equate to all the farms in the world. And grass fed, and this is always my biggest argument, like grass fed, free range, like what pasteurized, raised, all that stuff. At the end of the day, those animals still go through the same treatment just like everyone else, and not one farm, just one. If one farm is treating their animals perfectly right, I mean, don't you really think the biggest betrayal is betraying your friend to get them killed? You know,
Yeah.
and people don't really recognize that, but I think that's only because through my personal experience, I was in war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where life and death was part of the game. It's not just like I'm playing a game, watching movies, never really experienced violence in my life. Maybe oh, I got a little bullied at school or something. This is what normal people usually experience, or a fight at a bar, but never really experienced when you're living in a country where people are out to kill you, you know, and the playing ground is fair. Everyone has weapons, everyone has bullets, and they all have their beliefs. And that's why I even said like bad guys, because when I was out there in war, some like the same things that we were indoctrinated to go to war, because in the US, I was during Operation Iraqi Freedom, so obviously the 9/11 really stirred up a lot of people's feelings, and how the news propaganded the war. It's like, yeah, like the Iraqis are evil, they're bad, they're terrorists, everyone's a terrorist, right? It created, even within our own country, it created a lot of racism and prejudice against people who was Arabs,
Yeah.
who was Arabic, and,
Yeah.
and created a lot of that because of what news, and thank God there wasn't social media back then, because I can only imagine how much worse that racism and prejudice could have gone, because we see how it goes now, just with like a change of a president, if that makes sense, if you fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes down to that, when I was getting ready to ship out and we were getting our debriefings and stuff when we're about to hit land and be boots on ground, they showed us videos and propaganda of what the Iraqi news would show. Guess what we saw? You think they were showing what we were seeing in the States? Is
No.
the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So when you're in a war zone, yeah, I'm not saying like there's no bad guys, like yeah, there is terrorists and bad guys, yeah, but it's not a definition of everyone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the people that suffer the most is the people who don't want the war. When I was out there was a lot of people who didn't want us there, and they wanted the violence to stop overall. It wasn't about good or bad, because we're in someone else's territory, and we're taking over schools, hospitals, like cities. Like you have people who just wants to try to go work in school, and you have military tanks and trucks driving around blowing your shit up. Because you got too close to our vehicle. Because we have saying like you can't be as close as 50 to 100 meters to a combat convoy. So you get too close by mistake, your engine gets shot.
Yeah.
Now you don't have a car. And some of these people got a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? So that's their only transportation. So to answer your question, like that's why I went vegan, because a lot of the things that I experienced through my life, and it played a significant role. And I wanted to change my lifestyle to be more on a living and more compassionate lifestyle. And it all started with sport. I believe that when I was in the military, everything was about death, killing, combat, hoorah, and from a normal person's perspective, that might sound manly and like God of War type shit. But in reality, it's only so far the human mind can actually work on that type of spectrum, because I have friends who's dead, not from the war, but the after effect of war. A lot of the PTSD, drug abuse, because they couldn't get the things that they've seen out of their head. I've seen so many friends die. I've seen friends who literally left their families and moved to another country to start a new one, because they couldn't handle the social pressure in America, because they didn't feel comfortable living here. They felt betrayed. They didn't really feel American. So they ended up leaving, like literally leaving their whole entire family and starting a new one in a totally different country because
Wow.
they didn't feel like they're American enough after they fought for our country. And
Yeah.
that's more American than anything you could think of. But they still didn't feel like appreciated because the shit's still here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, like just going plant based and going vegan, it wasn't just like for animals. It was more like a spiritual move as well to redo my soul. Like I was like, yo, like I'm working for a business because being in the military is a business. You know, it's not just some patriotic shit. It's a business. You know, it's you're working in a company that it's legal to kill people. You know, to they said defend, but with defending, you're allowed to kill in combat. You know, if the rules of engagement is right and it falls within your favor, you're allowed to take people out. So going from that type of lifestyle to something a little bit more compassionate, it took a lot of healing because I was like, you know what, when I'm running doing exercises with my unit, we're talking the cadences is all about death and not being afraid to die. And you know, we would say things like, you know, if I die in a combat zone, box me up and send me home, tell my mom I did my best, you know, and things like that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a rapper because so it came out so smoothly. It's like this is things that we would say repeatedly.
Yeah.
You know, and I understand when you're, you know, anyone that's in the military and in a combat unit, like I understand that you need to have that type of attitude going to that because if you have some type of fragile mind going to war, like you're going to die, you're going to get shot, you know, for sure, you're going to get killed, you know. But after the fact, how can you turn that off? Because with that mindset, you can't get no job around regular people. You don't even fit in with regular people. You can't even be a cop.
Yeah.
Because some of the cops that even if they came from combat and become a cop, some of these guys end up killing people, innocent people, because you know, and that's a whole nother story right there. You know what I'm saying? So like for me, like I was like, yo, like when I saw the shit with the animals and stuff, I was like, if I start changing like how I am and what I eat, I wonder if it starts changing my lifestyle. Because I mean, it's one of the reasons why I went to the reserves, because in the reserves, I was trying to decide, like, should I go back full time because I wasn't fitting in. You know, I hated the civilian job I had. I hated the fucking business that I had. You know, it didn't. I didn't feel right. I was like, man, I used to be like going to war. Like when I was in war, I actually felt like I was doing my job. Like all the training I was doing, I finally felt like now this is what I fucking signed up for.
Yeah.
You know? Now I'm doing my job because I want, and just to know how crazy I was when we were about to leave Iraq, I was telling my higher ups, like we were trying to get into another unit that was going to stay because they had things like that. Like they had programs and like, if you didn't want to go back home with your unit, you could stay because they needed people there, but they wanted to keep rotating people out because they know the psychological stress can mess people up, you know, just being out there, just war. But I was the type of guy that was just like, what's there to go back to? You know, like I'd rather just stay out here and fight because I'm doing my job. It's as crazy as it sounds. It was easier to work in war than back at home, because back at home you're following like dumb rules, like you have to wear your hat and you know like uniform has to be clean and stuff like that. Like a lot of meniscus crap. I don't want to spend all day really talking about it, but when you're in war, it's like you know you don't have to worry about like hats and being clean. Like you're just down, dirty, like you're in the shit. You know, like you're doing you're you know, you're doing Marine shit. You know, like no one's worrying about if your hands is in your pocket. You know what I mean? Like everyone's like, you know, like little stupid little things like get your hands out of your pocket. Like it's like stupid little rules, man. Like no one cares about that because they're like, you're in war. Like right now it's about survival. It's like all this little small little dumb rules that we have back in the States when you're in your base is out the window. Like It's about mission briefings, doing missions, accomplishing them, and fighting. You know what I'm saying? And just
Yep.
surviving. So for me, I was like, I love this. Like, it's one of the reasons why, like, I even tell a lot of my friends, like, even when the camp I was at, I was in Camp Hit in Al Anbar province, right, in Iraq, and Camp Hit was like a support. So it's like a small little camp, like, so it's a fighting position, right,
Yeah.
and we were supporting all the other fighting positions that the infantry had as well, because I was part of Motor T, which is a logistic combat unit. So we were like side by side with the infantry guys and helping them out, whatever they needed. We go out, if they need trucks, whatever, we support them with those missions. So like, so for me, I was like, hell yeah, you know, I like doing this. But we had a main base, you know, and in the main base, what they would do is, if like they would have you out there for a few weeks, and then they're like, hey, we're going to rotate units, because it's the same, the psychological stress, things like that. You know, because when you're in camp, you're living off of MREs and stuff, like rations all day. So it's not like the most comfortable thing in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're sleeping in a sleeping bag. We took over a school, and we were sleeping on like these fucking concrete slabs with the sleeping bag with no pillow. You know what I'm saying? With sandbags covering the windows just in case a bomb like flew in, a motor round came in or some shit. So like, we're living in like the shit, you know. While versus base, you got, you know, no shit. You got satellite, you got TV, you got chow hall, you know what I'm saying? You got little shops and stores out there. You know, you got a nice little bed. You know, like it's more comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When every time they asked me to rotate, I said no, I don't want to rotate. I want to stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, sure, you're good. I'm good. And I told him, saying, I'd rather stay here because, like, I'm always the type of person. It's always the small shit that pisses me off, not the big shit. You know, so it's like I'm like, I'd rather just sit here because I'm like, I don't have to deal with nonsense. You know, people would complain like, oh yeah, we have to put trucks in line and stuff. I'm like, I don't got time for that. I just want to do missions. Put me more missions, night missions, day missions, whatever. Like, I just want to be on the road and do my job, man. Like, I enjoy it, you know. That's it. But once I got back to the States, and they didn't fulfill the request I had, because there was a lot of things that happened, and the time we got back, then I got like, you know, like, it was an ex-girlfriend. I ended up connecting again, and that kind of like started those switches. Some of those switches were turning off. You know, I was getting a little bit more complacent being back in the state. Then the time they wanted me to get with this unit, like, I was just like, I mean, the girl I was with at the time, I was so heavily invested with this individual, and it was almost time for me to get out. That's why I made that decision to stay. You know, kind of, we had a deep conversation, but beyond that, that's like my demeanor, you know, of why I went plant-based, and, you know, started feeding my soul, started like saying like, hey, I need to get the death off the plate. Peace starts with the fork. And then started doing stuff like that, you know, to be more compassionate, turn off those switches, you know, and have a better understanding of life in general when it comes, it's not just for me, but for other living beings, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you were in such a situation where there was so much violence that you were looking at the different aspects after you got out of how can I fix different areas of my life. And it seems like veganism was one of those aspects for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to fitness stuff, were you always into fitness stuff, or is this something that came after you were vegan, or?
I was always into fitness. I mean, I've been training since I was 15 years old. I'm like 40 years old now. So very long time, you know, and when people ask like what motivated you, I'm like, girls, you know, like I was some scrawny kid in high school, band geek, you know. But even me, I wasn't like that big of a nerd. Like, I mean, I was always involved in some type of athleticism, you know. I was very smart in the books, but I always played sports, you know, even since I was 7. Like, I was playing baseball, tennis, you know. I was always playing outside, doing things, or, you know, doing something active. So I was never like just a nerd who just sat there and had glasses and like whatever. But in high school, it was just that, like I wanted to put on more muscle because I just had a very lean and scrawny physique, you know. And
Yeah.
I noticed, you know, and I'm being very truthfully honest. I noticed like a lot of people that play like football or wrestling, a lot of girls were gravitating to them, you know. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't know if I want to really, you know. I always had a thing about football. Like I always saw I wanted to play, but I didn't know if I wanted to, you know. Like I was very like iffy about it. But and I never ended up playing when I was in high school, even though I was invited to join the team. But what ended up happening is like I was like, you know what, let me just start hitting the weights, you know. And I just started hitting the weights like after freshman year in high school, going into sophomore. You know, I started getting more eyes looking at me. You know, people were looking at me a little more like, oh man, like man, even dudes was like, hey, bro, you look jacked, bro. Like you putting on some muscle. I was like, yeah, what are you doing? And I was like, like somewhere I just started going to the gym, bro. Like started hitting the weights, and then like girls just started talking to me more frequently, things like that. I mean, so it all started off with that, but then eventually, obviously, I mean, I'm young and stuff like that, but eventually it just became a lifestyle. Like, you know, regardless with girls and stuff like that, it just became a lifestyle. I just continued training, kept on working out, you know, got into more sports, and then eventually got into the military. And even throughout the whole military career, it was very physical, a lot of physical training and stuff like that. So, like, even though I had the military physical stuff, like I was always doing my own physical training as well. So being active, working out was always a big part of my life because it was just something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed just working out, like pushing my body, like doing physical stuff. So, but to make a long story short, yeah, like that's what really got me into fitness. You know?
Yeah. And with the bodybuilding stuff, when did that come into play? Was that after you were vegan, or did you do that? Did you start bodybuilding before you were vegan?
I started bodybuilding when I went vegan. So after the first year being vegan, you know, it was actually one of my best friends. He actually saw me doing it. Like he at first he thought it was just a like, you know, a little fad, like, oh, like this guy's just going to give up. How this guy's going to give up? Because I was a big meat eater, man. Like, so I get it when people love meat and all this stuff, but like a lot of things are associated to it. I mean, I understand, like barbecues, hangouts, like football games, like all that shit. I totally understand it. And I was big in that. I was like the grill master for all the football games I should go to. And, you know, we do a lot of tailgating and stuff. And I would prepare the meat and all this shit, man. But once I went vegan, like he thought it was a phase. But then after the first year, he saw my physique just improve by a lot. You know, I was just like, it was easier to keep a low body fat percentage. I had a six pack. You know, I was already in shape, had muscles and stuff like that. Probably not as big as I am now, you know, but like I had a good physique. I was working with a good physique. And my friend was like, yo, you ever looked into bodybuilding? You know, I was like, nah, you know, because I think during that time, Ronnie Coleman was the thing. He was the jam during that time. So like, I was like, man, I'm not that big, you know, because I'm comparing, because remember, like social media is at, like this is 2012, you know, 2013. Like social media is at its infant stage. Like we were looking at things through magazines, like Mental Health Magazine, Muscular Development, you know, like bodybuilding magazine, like stuff like that. So I'm like, bro, like bodybuilding, like you see the guys who does this stuff, like they're huge. And he's like, well, there's an amateur league, and you know, what you're seeing is like the cream of the crop. You know, you have to start off as an amateur. He started telling me a little bit of stuff about it. And he even showed me one of his friends who did like a natural tested show. And he's like, look, like you look better than him. And he got second place, you know, and I did look better than him. And I was like, what? Like, I'm like, how you get, and I didn't even know how to get into it because like, even with Google, you type in like bodybuilding shows, nothing showed up. Like, it was hard to find anything because even Google was I mean, the only time we were using Google was for research papers. You know what I'm saying? Not for like big things. And the .com movement with businesses and stuff was like really at beginner stages. You know, like you remember. You know, so for me, like you know, it was hard to even look for shows. I didn't even know how to get in. But I was like, I told my friend, like, well, if I could find someone who's in it, like, I'm down. He's like, yeah, let me hit him up. But he never got back with that friend. And, it's funny how the universe works, because I was truly interested to do it. I was like, it can't hurt to try. So then, one day I live in Miami, and I was young. So I was at a nightclub with one of my friends, and she was actually dating a bodybuilding coach who's still my bodybuilding coach today. I mean, they're not together anymore, but like, he's still my bodybuilding coach. We talked in the club. He gave me his number. He's like, yeah, just call me, when you're ready. I called him that following week. And then we started from there. And then when he found out that I was vegan, it was his first vegan client. And back then, vegan wasn't even popular. It was just like, you're vegan? Like, what does that consist of? Like you can eat eggs and stuff. I was like, wow, I don't eat nothing, bro. And he's like, what? Like, so what do you eat? And I was like, tofu and rice, beans, vegetables. And he's like, all right, well, I do counting macros. So as long as you hit your macros, then do it. And, I was already in school at that time, going for nutrition and getting my degree in exercise science and physiology and stuff. So it wasn't hard for me to figure it out, to learn. Like, it was just a learning curve of counting calories and macros, because that was one piece that I didn't know. Even in nutrition, they taught you how to write a meal plan and calories and macros, but they didn't really explain like how to really track it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they had my Fitness Pal was out, but he told me like, yeah, download my Fitness Pal. This is when my Fitness Pal was actually free. So it's like, now it's just a free trial. Like, this is when it was actually free. It didn't matter if you bought it or not. It was just, it worked. Everything worked. So I was using my Fitness Pal and just learning it, and through that, like, that's when I started taking everything that I learned from school and obviously books and forums that I was reading back in the days, and started incorporating it into real life sport activity. So that was like the first time I was like, okay, like, everything I'm learning now, I'm putting into actual practice into a sport environment and I thought bodybuilding would be great for this, because how I was thinking about it was like, then regular people that I train with weight loss, like, I'm just trying to put them in a calorie deficit. They were working out. But in bodybuilding, this is when you're really manipulating the body how you want it to look. So if I can master that, then I can master nutrition, because like, that's what weight loss is. And if I understand health and wellness, like vitamins, minerals, dietary fiber, obviously I learned more about that along the way as when I was vegan. Throughout the years, I started learning more about hypernourishing body, vitamins, minerals, fiber, not just macros, because it started off with just macros and calories. Then the more I learned, I started learning like it's more than just macros and calories. You need vitamins, minerals, and I started learning more about that. That's when I started really perfecting it. And obviously I was training people at the same time throughout this, and people were getting results overall. But my programming skills got a lot better as time went on.
Yeah. And that's interesting. You're saying like you were tracking fiber and stuff. I feel like that's something that a lot of bodybuilders don't focus on, and it's so important that everybody's just so hyper focused on protein intake. They just never take into account things like fiber.
Yeah. They in the bodybuilding, even still to this day, there's still some nuance about fiber. Like, a lot of bodybuilding coaches feel that you don't need fiber because it holds water, makes you bloated. But the thing that I realize is that that's partially true. But it's not to the extent where you need to do, like, let's say I have a guy who wants to get ready for a show in a year. It doesn't mean that in the whole entire year the individual is going to be eating zero fiber or very low fiber diet just so they can get ripped and not avoid and to avoid bloating. For me, I'm like, no, like when I have clients who works with me, I'm like, the only time we lower the fiber intake is on peak week, like 1 week before the show. And it's not even the whole week. It's only 3 days before the show we start lowering it.
Yeah.
And we'll get it down to like 10, 15 grams of fiber. I always say the lower the better, but it's only for 3-4 days, because it only takes about 48 to 72 hours for any type of bloating from fiber to go down,
Okay.
So that's why we do 3 or 4 days out, reduce the fiber by a lot. It doesn't matter if you're at 60, 80, 50, 30, we'll bring it all the way down to like I said, 15, 10, we'll probably start giving you digestive enzymes and things like that to help with your digestive system and continue to push out stool softeners and make the stool even softer so it just slips out like butter, and really get the stomach to really shrink and get really cut and really dry, but then once they're done with the show, then we'll start incorporating fiber again, get off the little digestive enzymes and all this stool softener crap, and then get them back onto the diet they were on. Because when you're doing all that stuff, you really deplete a lot of things in your body, like a lot of minerals, a lot of vitamins, a lot of electrolytes and stuff. There's a lot of things that gets depleted during that peak week, but it's not sustainable. It's only for a show. And that's why a lot of my clients have good longevity. They could do the sport for a very long time. It's healthy because they see how I do it. Like I'm always putting health and wellness of the athlete first versus the show. And I really have a better understanding of nutrition versus like your typical bodybuilding coaches. They're more for the bodybuilding. They're like, we'll push the envelope for you to get pro. We don't care. This is what worked with this athlete, because they're using past experiences of the best that they work with, but they're not putting health and wellness in mind. Because if you see some of the best of the best, a lot of reasons why they quit wasn't just because they were old. It's because their body couldn't handle that type of abuse of not feeding the body well. With all the training,
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think you do see here and there are some bodybuilders that pass away young from things like heart disease. And I think part of that is because of the diet. I mean, part of it might be because of like performance enhancing drugs and stuff as well.
Sure.
But I think part of it is due to the diets too. Because like you said, I mean, you see people eating 12 eggs a day, eating steak, red meat, all this stuff and they're just over consuming calories. So that definitely has to take a toll in the body.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the performance enhancing drugs definitely play a role, because obviously they have to overconsume the protein intake. Because when you're on that type of stuff, your body's like it's like you just put a turbo engine in your body. So like everything works a lot faster. Recovery is faster, hypertrophy is faster. So that's why they have to put down so much food, because the body's just like, it's just like it's redlining and it's getting all the benefits. So that's part of it. But then, like I said, like the wellness side is like, I mean, you could be, it's protein and looking good and I always say this, like in bodybuilding, a lot of coaches who's not very well versed in nutrition, it's like they're trying to make you look good from the outside, but it doesn't, in the inside doesn't mean it's good either. Just because you look good from the outside doesn't mean in the inside you look good. And even to this day, like you see people who's promoting like heavy protein diets and things like that. It's the same. I'm like, and I've been in the bodybuilding world and I understand it. So I'm just like, I don't see that much of a difference from a regular person even doing that as well. I just look at it like, you might look good now, and some of the symptoms that you make claims that got better might be good now, but long term, I don't think it's going to be helpful. Because it's just like with bodybuilders, like. Only difference is it happens faster because they're eating so much more, and they're taking the PEDs,
Yeah. So when you train, do you recommend like high carb and low fat? Is that like the type of diet you do, or how do you like set up your macros?
It depends on each individual. I mean, for me right now at the moment, I'm doing like more of a high carb, low fat diet, with more of a high protein style. And that's only because I'm still like focusing on hypertrophy training and stuff like that. But I feel that's only necessary for individuals that's in a sport and they're doing it for a particular reason. But when it comes to the average person, like the average Joe who's just trying to build muscle, and I mean, you don't need that much protein, number one.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people, I'm like, you know, some of the things you hear online applies to them, but not to you. You know, so and that's why I tell people, like, yeah, I do about 180, 200 grams, but I'm a competitive athlete. I actually compete, you know. But my clients, they're eating half of what I eat. You know, most of them like 150, 140, you know. They're doing like those levels. If they're women, maybe 120, 140, maybe even a lot less. And it depends on the goals. Like, you know, for example, if you're more like a high endurance athlete, you know, like you're doing like marathons and stuff like that, they don't even need that much protein. Like these guys probably need like, I mean, for a man, probably need like 120 grams of protein. And majority of their diet is very high carb with moderate fats. And that's only because like they're not trying to build muscle. Like they want to build muscle, but not like no bodybuilder. So they don't need that much protein. And since they're doing more of a performance sport, they need more energy, they need more fuel. So carbohydrates, since it's a faster fuel source, is going to help them with that, also with the fats. So that's what's going to help them be able to perform a lot better. They don't need that much protein for recovery if they're doing a lot of endurance type activities. You know what I'm saying? So it really depends on the individual, their goals, what they're trying to do. Are they trying to build muscle? Is it performance based? Is it trying to lose body fat? Even what they prefer in a diet, like when I'm like, let's say for weight loss, I usually, if we partition the ratios of the macros, I'm a big fan of 35% protein, 25% carbs, 40% fat for weight loss. But then as they lose the fat, those ratio will change more into more moderate protein, higher carbs, moderate fats, you know. But it all depends. It maybe if someone is like a carb junkie, like some people, I don't have them a lot, but this is why I call those individuals like carb junkies, because like they're just so obsessed with carbs. They're like, oh, I like to eat my fruits and I like to eat my rice and beans, and I don't like doing all this protein stuff. And even though the protein stuff is giving them the best results because they're feeling more satiated, sometimes they just want more carbs. So like I could change the meal plan to be more lower protein, higher carbs, moderate fats, but the goals have to be realistic. Like you can still lose weight, but the goals have to be realistic. Because, for example, I had a client who wanted to have more muscle tone and more leanness and lose body fat, but she wanted her diet to be more programmed as a high endurance athlete. And I was like, you can't have both of both. You know, you're trying to create something that's not real. You know, so I was like, you could eat that and you'll lose weight, but your body isn't going to reflect to the person that you're idolizing. You're not getting enough protein, and with the strength training, you're not going to recover well. Like you're going to look very flat, and that's what was happening. She was looking flat, and I was like, do you want to get on the protein, or you know, because when you're on protein, your body was looking better. You know, like your protein is just way too low for the strength training and everything you're doing. Like you're doing one strength training with steady state on a very low protein, high carb diet. It's not gonna. It's like you're trying to force a result that the recipe is not it for the results you want. Now, if you're a runner just with a leaner body, I told her like, then you will look better, but you're not running. Yeah. So, but again, it really depends, you know, on individuals' results and their goals. You know, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you were first getting into competitions and bodybuilding, how did people take it when you were going vegan? Was it like mostly negative, or were people mostly interested, or how was people's perception of you?
When it comes down to other athletes, it's more positive. Like you're not going to see negative stuff. The only time you see negative stuff about someone's lifestyle, especially of their athleticism, is online. and that's only because everyone feels that they can express their opinion and talk shit, and it's because they have a screen between them. They're not in front of your face, but when it comes down to the actual sport and other athletes, they see it impressive. They're like, man, like, like, I mean, if you see, like, got tons of rewards, behind me, tons of rewards. So, like, when people see you and they see that you could be a threat, and then you find out, like, all you eat is like broccoli and shit, that they're like, whoa, man, like, seriously, you're plant-based, man, and they know, and even in the sport of bodybuilding, people know who's natural and who's not. Like, we know, So when I see all these people online say, "Oh, you're not natural," and this and that, it doesn't even bother me, because it's more of a compliment, because these individuals never been to a bodybuilding show. They never did any type of sport in their life. They're not around athletes. They just watch from the stands. They're watching from their screen. They're not in that world where you're in the world of athletes. So athletes know, because you could tell. There's a significant way you can tell. So so when it comes down to it, they're very impressed. Very, very impressed. Like, people ask me tips. Sometimes athletes will reduce their meat intake or switch out a protein powder or something like that, because they would just talk to me. They're like, man, I always thought, like, eating that stuff would make you bloated and stuff, like, they'll even ask for advice. Like, like, my coach only has me eating broccoli. Like, is it bad to eat more vegetables? I think I should be eating more vegetables. I'm like, no, you eat more vegetables. And I give them my take on it. Or, like, they get bloated drinking whey protein. That was, like, the big thing, especially when I started. The whey protein, like, a lot of bodybuilders were complaining about being bloated on drinking whey. And I would just tell them, like, try plant-based protein. Really? And I was like, yeah, man. Like, you don't get your fiber, and it's just with whey, it is coming from dairy, so, like, that could play a role in the inflammation and gas and the bloating. A lot of, I've seen so many bodybuilders with IBS and digestive issues. So that would be some of the things I would tell them. And I would just tell them, like, yeah, you're eating, like, a very high protein diet. Your coach has you, like, dieting and carb, zero carbs or very low carb diet, and they're only giving you, like, one vegetable source, like broccoli or a sweet potato. I'm like, broccoli and sweet potatoes, they're healthy, but it's not like the spectrum of all the vitamins and minerals you need. And when you have a lot of digestive issues, your gut microbiome is probably a sign of your gut microbiome being weak because of lack of fiber. So you probably want to start incorporating some fiber so you can get some natural pre and probiotics. Because, like, I would see their meal plans and stuff, and again, they would give them, like, digestive enzymes to help with this, and prebiotics from that you buy on the shelf. And while you supplementing things that you can actually get from food, that's going to play more of a beneficial role. Like, it's okay to take it from time to time, but, like, every single day as pretty much as a prescribed thing on your meal plan, like, I don't think that's good, because you're supplementing something that you can just naturally get. So not that I have against a lot of supplements, and I take supplements too, but, like, there's just certain things that it's unnecessary, especially on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing I see a lot online, especially now in the fitness community, is, like, the prevalence of, like, carnivore diets and people kind of pushing this. And I think it's tied to people's ideas of what, like, masculinity is. And it kind of seems like almost it's a reaction to seeing, like, a lot of people like yourself that are really healthy and are vegan. So, like, what would you have to say about that? Like, somebody that thinks, I have to eat animal products in order to be healthy and be masculine and all of these things.
I mean, you don't have to, like, I'm against the carnivore and keto diets, because and animal-based diets, because it's a very extreme, like, way of eating meat. It's like, and they're glorifying something that people are already obsessed with. Like, we live in a country where protein is like a pinnacle of nutrition, right? And the problem with these diets is that a lot of it just lacks a lot of fiber. It just lacks fiber. I mean, at least the animal diet introduces like some vegetables and stuff like that, which is good, but I think how even people push that diet, certain individuals that push that diet, they still push more of the meat versus the balance of the vegetables, and plant-based foods. Because I've seen it all the time. I mean, that like Paul Sanadino, for example, like he like I like how transparent he is, and it seems like in certain, depending on the settings, he'll talk a little bit more truth about the vegetables and stuff. But on his page, it's just a complete opposite. Like sometimes he'll just go so heavy on the meat because he's a marketer too. He's an influencer. He knows what gets clicks and views. He's not stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he'll push that. But then I guess when people get into his program, he probably open up and be a little bit more transparent with the truth with his clients if he trains people openly like that. So that's the thing, and that's what I'm realizing. But and he even talked about the carnivore diet wasn't helpful for him either, like, because of the lack of the fiber and the vegetables and certain nutrients. So just using him as an example. So when it comes to certain diets, I feel that that's very popularized. I feel that there's some dangers around it, and obviously, a lot of people are just kind of like pushing the people that are being successful with it. But now I'm seeing there's a small rise of people who's getting side effects now from it,
Yeah.
But eventually in time, like, because I don't see it any different than the Atkins diet back in the early 90s. I don't see no difference from it. There was a hype, a popularity, people loved it. Oh man, you could eat meat. Time repeats itself a lot. The only difference is that vegans wasn't the popularity at the time. It was more like, I think it was the Mediterranean diet at the time during the Atkins. So I think it's going to be the same thing like this. Just within time, when more people really get sick and tired of it and just realize some of the things. I think there's going to be some light shed on certain influencers that, and this is just my personal opinion. I'm not even saying it's a fact. It's just my personal opinion. I think there's going to be certain influencers that's going to be shined to light that they're false. That like they're just straight up lying to their audiences. Certain ones are opening up and being very truthful. Certain ones are just there, like just lying and just doing it for money. And just like, for example, like Liver King, who got caught, and what he got caught with was nothing compared to like, because I'm like people actually thought you were natty, bro. Like, that's ridiculous. Like you actually thought you eat meat and you're gonna look like that. Like, that's ridiculous. You're getting sued for it. I think that's nothing compared to what's going to come pretty soon. Like, I think it's really right around the corner. Like, near end 2025, beginning 2026, you're going to start seeing the shed of light is going to start hitting these certain influencers where they're realizing that they're lying to their audience. They're not even doing it right. They're probably not even eating as much as they're claiming, and they're going to get hit up with some lawsuits and things like that for sure.
Yeah. It seems like that crowd, they really prey on like a lot of younger men that want to get into fitness and, they want to be more masculine or whatever. So they're looking at somebody like Liver King and he's saying, eat this goat's head, it makes me masculine or whatever he's pushing on people. And half the time they're pushing supplements too. But do you think there's a way like in the plant-based community where we can bring people in to like, especially like young men that are trying to get into fitness that might be falling for some of this stuff? Do you have any idea of like how we could reach out to more of those people?
To me, I really just focus more on like what I do. Like I just post out facts, studies, show example of my testimonials and things like that. Like just things like that. Like because I'm not so super fixated on these individuals. Like I just know that they're very known, they're very big. Like it's hard to miss them. But for me, it's nothing that I'm super fixated on because I like the people that I work with are people who's more serious. Like the younger guys aren't serious. Younger guys want just muscles. They want to be more masculine. They want to get girls. The mindset's different. It's different than than I am, you know, and the people I work with. A lot of the people I work with are a lot older. So they're more mature, they're more older, and they're doing it because they know they need help. You know, I have guys who came to me who did keto and literally had a heart attack doing CrossFit, 6-pack and everything. And they came to me and wanted to do on a plant-based diet and help them out, you know. Or people tried, you know, the carnivore diet and just got sick of it. And they're like, yeah, I think we start incorporating plants because it wasn't working out. And they're older, because when you're older, it's like you look at life a little bit different when you're younger. You know, you're looking at it more for longevity, not just for like to be cool and talk shit online and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm a caveman. I'm like, a lot of that stuff starts leaving your mind, like caveman mentality, what my ancestors did, like all this shit that people like to bring up. Like, you start really thinking more logically. Like, you know, a lot of people start thinking more logically, and they're like, look, I tried it didn't work. I need to find something that's going to work. Simple as that. Because my doctor is saying this, you know, people online might be saying one thing, but my doctor's saying this, and they're about to prescribe me pills. And guess what? When I'm breathing or when my heart rate gets high, I feel a sharp pain in my chest. Like, so I don't think this is good.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the thing. It's like, and some people just have to go through their own experience. So that's why I'm like, I'm not really worried about convincing people. I would say let them go through their experience just as I went through my experience. So I have my experience, that's made me go deep. Yeah. Let them go through their experience. Yeah. And if they want to eat animals and eat a high protein diet and think these guys are going to save them, maybe you might save a few people for sure. I mean, everyone's different. So like, I'm not going to say, I can't sit here and say it would never work for everybody. It probably will work for most people. But there's going to be also individuals that will get sick, will get tired, you know, it's not going to work for them. And then they're going to look for something that's going to be either more balanced or something that's like, you know, they just want to stay away from, because they went from one extreme and then they want to go to the next extreme and just say, like, you know what, I tried this, I talk shit about vegans and stuff, but look at Korin, he's been talking about this shit for 15, 20 years already, saying the same shit. I should call him an asshole, you know?
Yeah.
Look at him, look at me. You know what? I won't go with this guy. He's been talking there for a long time, like, and just say, I'm sorry, bro. You know, like, I need your help. Like, so that's why I don't worry too much. You know, like, I me and focus on me, and people like my message. They like it. All right, cool, whatever. You know, I'm always here to help. Like, and that's why I never close my doors to people. And even I want to add on to this, like, that's why I never close my doors to people. I'm not a vegan extremist where, you know, someone says like, oh, like, I'm not vegan, can I still work with you? I'll be like, no, you kind of know vegans who won't work with people who aren't vegan. It's like almost like a, you know, like a club. Like, okay, if I don't eat all plants, I'm not taking business from you. You know.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like it's almost cult-like.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the cool club. Like, oh, you can't come in. And for me, I work with people who's non-vegan too. You know, so, but I tell them that my style is more of a plant-forward diet. So it's not a very popular word right now, but it's more plant-forward, where they can still eat animal protein, but majority of the diet is more plant-forward. Like, it's so, for example, if I made the tofu scramble, same principles still apply with hypernourishing body getting proper dietary fiber. But if they want to switch that tofu with like egg whites, they can. You know, and a lot of vegans don't like hear me talk about this, but I was telling them that you didn't understand what I do. And doctors don't talk about it too, because they know the shit that they get on, and I feel some people worry too much about their image. Especially everyone's trying to, and this is just how I look at it. I've been in the vegan community for a very long time, and I see how people fucking act. And it's like everyone's trying to be this perfect fucking vegan and be a purist, you know? And even some doctors is out there, it's like that too, because some of the shit they say, I disagree. You know, they're very extreme on this plant-based end. And what they'll do is, I'm like, so when you're working in a hospital You don't work on a patient that, if you're a cardiologist, you're telling me you don't work on a patient who eats meat, but they never talk about it.
Yeah.
They talk about vegan, but they never talk about the patient's health.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If they ask like, what should I eat? Do you just tell them like vegan, or you tell them like, well, start incorporating more plant-based foods? I think in those conversations with those individuals, they're not pushing vegan in the hospital. They're probably pushing, try to incorporate more plant-based foods, but they don't talk about it because online they're trying to be good to other vegans.
Yeah.
While me, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm a nutritionist. I have a job. That's why it's called Body HD Fitness, not called Korin's Vegan Fitness Club. You know? Or some vegan name, vegan gym shit. You know, I don't have like vegan plastered as an identity of me. Yeah. Because I know everyone can't be vegan. As much as I would wish like more people go plant-based and go vegan and stuff, because, you know, ethical reasons stuff. I get it. You know, but at the same time, I'm more real. I'm more present. I see what's going on. I don't live in this fucking bubble. You know, like and just keep repeating in the echo chamber. I know what goes on, and it's like I look at it like, yo, if I can get more people just to reduce the amount, that's already pushing them in the right direction. Now, if they want to go vegan after, great. But if I was able to get someone who was eating junk food, animal-based diet, all this crap, like hyper eating animals to like minimum consumption and eat more plant-based foods, that's still a win. Yeah. Yeah. In my book, it is, you know.
Yeah, I think you're right too. Like, even if you were minded in like the animal rights and stuff, and that was your focus, I think if you were to bring people in and say, like, lead by example and say, hey, this is what works for me, let me give you some tips on how you can improve things, I think people are going to be more receptive of that than if you were to be like, oh, I'm just going to push you out and not like work with you and all that. So I think, like you said, opening doors, I think that's a better way to bring people in and to introduce people to these kind of subjects rather than excluding them from it.
Yeah, because listen, a lot of people who works with me and they do that plant forward diet, they went from eating meat, because we watch everything they eat, so we could see everything they're eating. They'll start off the first week with all animal-based foods, you know, all like they'll eat the plant-based foods as well too, because they're on the plant. I mean, now when it comes to the recipes and stuff, obviously, like, I'm not making a recipe video, because a lot of our meal plans have recipe videos, and, you know, it's not me like chopping up a chicken, but I'll just write it in the meal plan saying like, yeah, have 4 ounces of lean chicken breast, you know, if you want to have beef, do this, you know, things like that. But only thing I'm doing is swapping out the protein. So like I said, tofu scramble, egg whites. If it's a chicken salad, then doing the daring chicken, do chicken breast, you know. But we'll put them side by side so people can see like, oh, the chicken breast is very equivalent to the same amount of daring chicken that he wants me to eat. If he wants me to eat like 9 egg whites, then that's equivalent to a half of the tofu block. So they'll do it, and they'll watch the videos of me cooking like the plant-based foods, you know. And no one really needs a recipe to cook the animal-based foods. Like it's kind of common sense, you know. I think everyone knows how to do that. So it's like, so when it comes down to it, they'll like be like, I want to try it out. I want to buy some tofu, and they'll buy like a packet of chicken breast, but then buy like maybe 2 bags of daring. Like, I want to try it because they're in the program, they're talking, they see the shit on Instagram and stuff, and they're like, let me try it, and then they try it, and they're like, it tastes pretty good, and I've seen them like start the days from a full day of animal-based eating go down to 7 to 5 days. 5 days to 3 days. Sometimes a whole week they went vegan. Yeah. And then the second week, maybe 1 or 2 days, they'll have like an animal byproduct in one of their meals. And when I see that, and I'm like, what happened? What? And they're like, dude, like, then getting eggs, the tofu is like way cheaper and it's higher in protein. Like, it's just that they're changing their mindset because they're seeing it from a price perspective, from a volume perspective, from a taste perspective. They're like, dude, the tofu tastes amazing. It was good. Yeah, it's very high protein. I mean, you're using like a half a block, like you said in the videos. Like, it's delicious, bro. Like, and then you put like turmeric and stuff and the black salt. Like, yo, that's just fire, man. It's really not that much of a difference, you know. And even with the daring chicken or something like that, like it tastes good. It's not as bad as people try to make it seem like. I'm like, see, I told you. And they're like, yeah, man. Like, yeah, I can see myself eating more vegan foods, man. Like, it's not as bad. And a lot of it was just coming from a fear base. It was already, they already had a little bit of fear just trying to work with me because they're like, dude, I'm about to work with a vegan coach. But they like the things I talk about, you know, like because I'm like a lot of the videos that I make isn't so demonizing on animal-based foods. Like sometimes I'll make videos and certain vegans don't like it, but it is what it is. But I'll talk about like proteins and say like, yo, here's my top proteins I would eat if I was an ex-vegan. Like I'll make a video or something like that, saying like if I was, you know.
Yeah.
And I'll say like, you know, have grass-fed and you know, do this, do that. But then I'll also incorporate a lot of the plant-based food because I've also noticed what I noticed too is like, why would ex-vegans go to one extreme to the next?
Yeah.
Yeah, like even if I started eating meat, why would I go from one extreme to the next extreme? Like it doesn't make sense to me. I'm like if it didn't work for one or two things. But it doesn't mean that the whole lifestyle, the diet, everything you learn is complete opposite, and then you have to go on opposite. Like maybe you weren't getting enough nutrients. Like okay, if you weren't getting like Miley Cyrus, I wasn't getting enough omega-3, 6, and 9. Great. So you have the fish, but so have fish, but does it stop you from eating mostly plant-based? No, you're still getting all the other benefits from that. Just because you don't know how to get your omega-3, 6, and 9 from a plant-based food source, you can still, because it's like when I went pescatarian. When I transitioned to pescatarian, guess what most of my diet was? You think it was just heavily fish? Or it was fish with plant-based foods? Fish with plant-based foods. You know what I'm saying? I was still eating a lot of plant-based foods. You know, like, I was still eating more plant-based foods, and I was just using the fish to get a little bit extra protein. Yeah. Until I figured out how can I get all my protein on a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
So it would be the same if I was deficient somewhere, you know? Yeah. Or I just don't, the veganism doesn't have the same meaning to you, you know, like, yeah, you do for animals, but I don't have that big connection, but I understand the health perspective. So like I'll have my chicken and stuff like that, but I'm still going to eat a lot of plant-based foods instead. I'm not going to go heavy, just eating one particular source of food. And I always tell people it's called macronutrients for a reason. They're large nutrients that's vital for the body to function. That's the definition of a macronutrient. So if you're not getting one of the macronutrients, it's okay if you lower one macro for a particular goal, because like I said, like for weight loss, I'm a fan of high protein, low carb, moderate fats, but it's not forever. That's why I don't really promote it like low carb diet. I don't promote it because what I'm doing is very custom, and it's not forever. It's only for a time being to get to one goal. After that, we have to switch it to the next goal, So that's my take on it,
All right, great. Well, we're going to wrap up here, but I just want to, for people that want to find you in other places, like where can people find your content?
They can find me online. I'm on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. Just type in my name, Korin Sutton, KORINSUTTON, and you'll find me. Then you go on my website at bodyhcfitness.com or email me at KorinSutton@bodyhcfitness.com.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Korin, for coming on and having a chat with me.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.
All right, you too. Peace.